back to C puzzles. We are going to continue on with operators 3.3. For those of you that are following, we are doing puzzles from the C puzzle book by Ellen R. Feuer. You can see here, this is the book that I am doing the puzzles from. Jumping right back through where we left off. All right, here we go. Once again, we are still with the snippet of code here that we have executed from operators 3.1 and 3.2. We have our print macro again defined here. And now we're going to go ahead and try to execute the statement here in operators 3.3, which is z is equal to x plus plus minus 1, with a call to the print macro for both x and z as identifiers. Now, before I go ahead and jump into the exercise, we're going to do a little recap here on our pre/postfix increment/decrement operators, as the next following exercises will heavily consist of these operators as we go forward. So once again, our prefix increment, here an example here is you have plus plus x, and what this will do is we'll go ahead and increment x prior to assigning to z. An example here is we have z is equal to plus plus x. Say, for example, x is equal to 1, z is being to 0. Once we evaluate the statement here, what will occur is x will increment to 2 prior to assigning it to the value of, or to the variable z. And at the end, x will equal to 2 because of the increment operator here, and z just will get assigned that value, which is 2. When we're working with a postfixed increment, we will go ahead and increment the value of x after we have performed the operation. Example here, we have z is equal to x plus plus here. And say, for example, now that x is equal to 1 and z is equal to 0, what will occur here is z will get the value of 1, and x will go ahead and increment after to be a value of 2. So the result will be z equals to 1, which was what x was initially, and then after that, x will increment to 2. I meant to say z is equal to 1, not x equals 1. When we're doing the decrement operators, kind of work the same way, except now that instead of incrementing, we're decrementing in the same concepts as either as before or after. In the prefix decrement, once again, we have minus minus x. An example here is z is equal to minus minus x. And once again, an example here, let x equals 1, z be 1. After evaluating the statement here, we will see that we will go ahead and decrement x by 1. Therefore, x equals to 0, and we'll go ahead and assign the value of 0 to z. So once again, we decrement x prior to the assignment of z. In the postfix decrement, we'll go ahead and assign the value of z to the value of x, and then decrement x after. Once again, example here, we have x equal to 1, z is equal to 0, where z is equal to x minus minus. What will occur here is the value of x, 1, will get assigned to z, so therefore z will equal to 1, and then x will go ahead and decrement by 1 to become 0. All right. Jumping now into operators 3.3, the setup here, if you go back a couple of slides here, we are going to go ahead and assign x and y to be 1. So nothing really changes from the previous two exercises, but we'll go ahead and make sure that our initial values before we run this exercise are well known. The line of code we are in question is z is equal to x plus plus minus 1 with 2 macro invocation calls. So in the above statement, again, we have 3 operators. We have the postfixed incremental one, which we discussed in the previous slide, subtraction, and assignment. Now, out of these 3 operators, which operator does operands to be evaluated first? In this case, we'll be doing subtraction, which takes the highest precedence. Now, you may ask yourselves, well, how can that be true? If we go back to our table here, in the first and second column, we see that the postfixed and the prefix increment/decrement have the highest precedence, as opposed to subtraction, which falls 4th in the column. And yes, that's true, but what happens here is that the prefix and the postfix operators, they will go ahead and bind to either the value before in the operator here. And what that means is, if you look at the postfix fixed increment here, doing some parentheses, we can see that between the x and the double plus sign, there's a white space. So the C compiler will go ahead and ignore that white space, and will go ahead and bind this operator to the value of x. So therefore, this operator, the postfix, will only occur after whatever x has been used in whatever operators or operations that precede it. In the above examples, we had that there was literally nothing else after the plus plus x, so therefore the assignment occurred, or the increment occurred here, and then the assignment occurred later. But in the postfix, in this case, we saw that the assignment occurred first, where we assigned the value of x to z, and then we incremented after. In this case here, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and increment x after it is after the value of x has been used for the operation of subtraction. So in this case here, what will occur is the subtraction will occur first, with the x plus plus being the left-hand side operand and the 1 being the right-hand side operand. So once again, we have a value of 1 as x. We'll go ahead and subtract 1 from 1, which will give a value of z equals 0. As a result, noting that after that operation occurred, x will go ahead and increment to 2, given that we're going to apply the postfix increment operator afterwards. So x will be x plus 1. Recall that x is 1, so therefore x is a value of 2. And last but not least, we'll go ahead and call our two print macro invocations. Once again, they are just matching calls to the printf function that will print either x and z, x being 2, z being 0, and we should see a value of 2 and a value of 0 at the terminal. We'll go ahead and run this, going into our code here. Once again here, I've uncommented these two lines, so we should see the values of 2 and 0 being printed out in the terminal. Going to go ahead and compiling our code here. And once again, we get the warning. You can see here that the last two values are 2 and 0 as expected. The use cases of pre/postfix increment and decrement are several cases. You will usually see these in C programs in for loops / indexing. Whether it's indexing a buffer, an array, or we're using as one of the parameters for the for loop. We'll usually see some sort of incremental / decremental per the iterations that we do the for loop. We would also use these for arithmetic increment / decrement for counters. For example, say you want to keep track the number of times you enter a function. You can keep a running tally or running counter that will count how many times the function has been entered and so forth. And another use case for these is my favorite, pointer arithmetic, which we'll get into in further videos, but it's a way to go ahead and index pointers to whether they're indexing or whether they're pointing to arrays or buffers and so forth. A little bit more of a cryptic / syntax, but nonetheless really efficient and really good to know. Thank you all for watching. For those that are curious and want to view the previous puzzle, go ahead and click on the bottom left corner. And for those that want to subscribe for more C programming puzzle content, click on the bottom right corner.